Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials. For this Sunday, I have a little dramatic sunset, so I start by painting the horizon, well, drawing on the horizon with some cadmium orange because I want this to be very saturated. Then upon the cadmium orange, I apply some dark chrome yellow, so I sort of do a slight gradient directly onto the paper with the pencils before even activating them. So I just go a bit on top of that orange and use less and less pressure as I move upwards about halfway through the page. The particular thing about this painting is I'm skipping random empty spaces for the clouds because I'm going to paint some clouds later on, so I'm just skipping those bits and pieces right now. For the middle and the top of the sky, I'm using some phthalo blue, and again I'm just lightly going in between all of the cloud shapes. I'm going to finish this off with some helio blue reddish, which is my darkest blue, and I use it for a very top and the corners of my sky. Again, skipping the clouds, that is very important. Then I take my watercolor brush and I blend from light to dark. For this painting, that means I start from the dark chrome yellow and I blend towards the orange. I thoroughly clean my brush onto a napkin and then I blend from where the yellow and the phthalo blue meet upwards towards my dark blue. Now, where the yellow and the blue are, I just go very lightly in one big swoosh. I do not focus on mixing those because I do not want to get a green. I just want a very subtle, a very smooth transition between them. So no need to scrub to go left to right, right to left, really focus on blending that. We don't need it. Plus, I'm using professional quality watercolor pencils, meaning they need very, very little in order to activate and to blend on their own. If you're using cheaper quality, then you may find yourself needing to really get in there and scrub it and whatnot to get a smoother look, but there is no need for it with proper art materials. Once the sky has dried, I take some of my helio blue reddish and I do a very light mountain shape with very, very low pressure in the very distance. And then I blend that out with my watercolor brush. I start from the edges and then using the bristles that are closest to the handle, which are clean, and the tip of the brush that already has some of that blue paint on it, I sort of do a gradient. I wet the bottom of the mountain and the top, which I have activated, leads down. Since it's a very low area, it works very nice for that. I just basically let it do its own thing and make life easier on me. Once it has dried, I do a second mountain in front of it with slightly more pressure. That final bit was still a bit wet where my first mountain is, so in the meanwhile, I'm going to color my clouds. For all of the clouds that are within the orangey area of my sky, I will be using the orange, my cadmium orange. I'm just doing a base layer with it, coloring everything. If drawing is not your thing, there is going to be a traceable available over at my Patreon page, Sunshine Arts, where we also do full-time tutorials and digital downloads. So if you're interested in any of that and you'd like to first support me and the channel, links will be available down in the description, along with all of the materials I have used throughout this video. And also the reference picture will be available down in the description as well. Now, once I finish my base with some cadmium orange, I take some pale geranium lake. You basically need a nice tomato red color, and I use it for the clouds there over on the blue part of the sky. However, I am going to leave the very bottoms of the clouds a bit empty, and I'm going to go over that part, just the bottoms of the clouds, with orange just in a bit. So right now I just color everything with red. Like I said, I want this to be a dramatic sky, so I really want some nice saturated clouds that are lighter on the bottom of the page, aka orange, and get darker as we go up with the sky, and it gets more dense, more sunsetty. I also add small amounts of my red on top of the orange clouds, just a small amount. And for the clouds that are further up in the sky, I am going to use a bit of phthalo blue just on the very top of them. So on the bottom we have orange, the base tone is all red, and on the top I'm going to use a bit of blue. Now I activate my second mountain just like I did with the first one, and because I used a bit more pressure for it, it's going to be visible on top of the previous one and slightly more saturated. Then with a clean brush, I just very lightly go on top of each and every cloud. I like to start from light to dark, so from the orange part of the sky where we have the orange clouds towards the top, towards the red and the blue ones. And I'm just very lightly tapping over in order to activate this. I'm not trying to blend. What is the difference? By very lightly just barely touching the surface with the brush, you activate it, and what that means, it just makes it more saturated, it makes it pop, whereas blending, you're really trying to get a gradient, you're trying to make it smooth, you're trying to get a transition. We do not want any of that. I just want this to be very, very saturated and go with that dramatic look I mentioned in the beginning. Once I finish the clouds, the mountains have dried, so I proceed to paint a third one on top of the previous ones. Again, this time even more pressure. I'm gradually building this up, and then I blend it with my brush and smooth it out downwards. Once that has dried, again take my yellow blue reddish, same exact color, and I paint a big mountain on the left side. I'm using more pressure towards the top and less towards the bottom, and this time I'm going to add a very, very small hint of black, just a smidge. Again, take my watercolor brush and I blend from the edge downwards. I just like to get a very nice, sharp, crisp edge, so that's why I blend like that. You could also do from the bottom upwards, but again, I like to have a lot of sharpness in my paintings. Lastly, once everything has completely dried, again, take the dark blue, and I'm using the most amount of pressure I've used throughout this painting. When I say a good amount of pressure, you want this to be saturated, but not to the point your hand physically hurts. I colored the mountain thoroughly and then use, again, small amount of black here. A good way to control your pressure is to notice how you hold the pen. So if you're holding it more horizontally / to a slight angle against the paper, that equals little pressure. If you're holding it more upwards, almost perpendicular to the paper, that is a lot of pressure. So that's just a little handy tip right there. And lastly, I activate this layer as well. Smooth it out since it is the very foreground and I want it to look nice. And lastly, I just proceed to peel off the tape, and that is it. I'd like to give a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters for the month of February, and thank you all for watching. If you found any value in this video, please let me know by liking, commenting, and if you have not already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye!